Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Wings Podcast. This is your host, Milind Agnihotri. On today's show, we will meet Niharika Kale, who works as a psychologist in a home based palliative setup, catering to mental health concerns of terminally ill cancer patients and their family. She did her master's in clinical health psychology from University of Strathclyde, UK, and today runs her own practice where she attends to mental health concerns for individuals and families. With a string of certifications on the subject of psychology, Niharika is also a Bharatnatyam Visharad. Welcome, Niharika, to this episode of Wings Podcast.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Uh, Niharika, palliative care
Mm-hmm.
and also palliative care in something called end of life cases.
Correct.
Uh, Sounds very intense.
It is definitely.
So, why don't you unplug these words for us?
Okay, so palliative is a branch of medicine. How curative medicine, there's palliative medicine. And palliative medicine, the idea behind it is to soothe the patient, to ease the patient, comfort the patient without, touching or curing him of anything. So there is cancer, we're not going to touch the cancer probably because it's end stage, it's stage 4 cancer, or there is the patient's age is a little too much, they're in their 80s and 90s, so they cannot take chemo, they cannot take radiation, so they have to be the way it is. So I have seen such patients who could be stage 2 and stage 3 just because of their age, they cannot take any curative treatment. So palliative is something that is generally put to them on table. So, end of life care again is a part of palliative care because we are, of course, once you get a disease, you're going towards end of life and we encompass everything. It's like an umbrella.
But then, how does somebody like you get introduced to a
Mm-hmm.
case like this? Does somebody reach out to you,
Okay.
and how does the engagement or the contracting happens?
All right. So I work with an NGO. It's a Bombay-based NGO, and we get about 65% of our referrals from Tata Memorial Hospitals, and then other hospitals in and around Mumbai, and then private clinicians, oncologists. So they do refer us patients. Even, word of mouth is another way we get our patients. Usually, stage 4, the family is coming to us at a point of distress that this is happening to my loved one and we don't know what to do anymore. The doctors have said, I can't give you any treatment. They've tried homeopathy, they've tried Ayurvedic, they've tried other Tibetan medicine, this and that, gone to religious segments, and still no answer. So they're really lost, they're really confused, and then they come knocking on our door these days. So that's the point where we meet our families and even the patients who are absolutely lost, who are really stressed, and there's so much dysfunction and distress happening around the illness and because of the illness. So that is how we meet our patients.
Cancer. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
despite all the research that has happened in the world of medicine, and it is a lot that has happened.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, over the years, medical science has found treatment to some of the most intense,
Mm-hmm.
cancer situations.
Mm-hmm.
Yet,
Yet
it is still elusive
it is.
in terms of a kind of treatment where you are confident that somebody is going to come out of it.
Correct.
And your work actually starts when the medical science has declared a dead end.
Correct.
And then what they are saying is end of life is imminent,
Yes.
and you as a patient and your family around you and
Mm-hmm.
your friends around you
Mm-hmm.
have to accept and cope with this reality.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
That's tough, my dear.
It is tough, and I didn't realize how tough it was going to be until I kind of jumped into the pool.
Uh-huh.
okay, so it's just going to be cancer patients. There's no more treatment. I have to help them. I have to address their anxieties, probably deal with their depressive mood, and a few other things that could be happening along the way. And then my first patient, my first visit with my senior psychologist, and the first question that the patient put forth was, what's the point of living? What's the point of life? What's the point of death? And okay, I wasn't prepared for these questions. I didn't realize that these were the questions I would have to deal with every day. So, a lot of existential crisis that I deal with every day in terms of patients as well as the family. And like you said, at the dead end, we come when it's dead, and ideally, we would like to come much before. But unfortunately, at this point at least, we are coming at the dead end when the curative team says, there is not much that we can do right now.
But then somebody like you, Niharika, you personally are at such a stage of your life where you are just beginning.
Yes.
And then you are into these intense conversations with somebody who knows that my innings are going to get over very soon.
Yes.
So, what sort of dynamics gets played out between you and, let's say, the patient who knows that my end is near?
Yes. So unfortunately, not a lot of patients are explicitly told that their end is near. It's usually the caregivers in our terms, or the family, who knows most of it. Oh, we don't want to tell this to our our patient, otherwise he'll lose hope and he'll die quickly, or she'll die quickly, then the sooner. So there's a lot of dynamic that is there, something we call as collusion. So my attempt is also to break that collusion, so that the patient can somewhere die with an understanding or do whatever they want to do before they die. So it is tough. I wouldn't say that it's easy. It is very tough. Sometimes I have nothing to say. Sometimes I am holding back tears in a conversation. Usually I just hold their hand and sit. Sit while they express, sit while they vent, sit while they pose questions. And that helplessness is quite evident. I mean, they are equally helpless, and so am I in that situation. And I have ended up having a lot of comic moments even in that difficult situation where the patient is crying and I am just, holding that space for them. So it's really intense, very difficult for me to kind of describe and paint a picture of it. However, some patients know, and they're quite excited in a way of, oh, I want to do this, I want to get these things done. So their outlook is very different.
So, you used the word collusion a while ago. What do you mean by that? Any example that you can take?
Sure. So recently there was this patient, a lady, and she had history of cancer, and it after a couple of good years, it relapsed, and the family, especially the husband, refused to let her know that her cancer's come back. Apparently, she had a very drastic reaction to being told that she had cancer when she got it the first time. So then this second time around, they didn't want to say anything, or, kind of just so that she spirals. So they were trying to overprotect her, and in that overprotectiveness, they ended up doing a lot of harm than good. So her death was not as peaceful as the family wanted to give it to her, as well as us, because she was in a lot of psychological distress because of, why am I not getting better? What is happening to me? Why is there so much pain? So she ended up unfortunately dying in a lot of pain. And this is a case where we struggled to break bad news to the patient. While on the other hand, there was this case where we successfully broke bad news to the patient, wherein she was a young woman with 2 little children, and she knew that she had breast cancer, but it had spread, and all the fact that she has limited time. Um, so the family wanted to let her know that. So we did a lot of counseling sessions with the mother, the father, the husband. Finally, they came to an agreement. Okay, we'll tell her that it's spread in the first course. So we did tell her that, oh, it's spread. Then after a few days, we did tell her that, we may not survive this because there is no more treatment, etc. um, she had her own emotional cycle and a response to it. She did do well with a lot of interpersonal therapy with her, helping her come to a somewhat stage of acceptance that she is going to pass. She ended up building fantastic scrapbooks for her two kids. It was a girl and a son. Um, so with all their age related milestones, whatever wisdom she wanted to impart, etc. So she got that chance to do it, and when it was really her time, I ended up breaking bad news even to the little children. And surprisingly, they realized that, oh, my mother's not too well, and perhaps she may not be with us. So that really worked out well, because after a few, even with the children, um, they had their own response to it, but they did quite well. They were able to process the absence of their mother much better than what the father was really worried about how that is going to happen. But a few 6-7 months later, when I did just how do you say, we do these phone calls 6 months on the death anniversary. So he said that kids are doing much better. I mean, they miss her, but they're not as they haven't recoiled or gone into a shell. So they're like, these are the two cases that I can say where collusion, breaking it and not breaking it, has been the situation.
Of course, correct me if I'm now wrong, Niharika, but this is not a perfect science.
It's not.
A palliative conversation or palliative care, especially in end of life situations, which is a certainty. It's like horses for courses, right? I mean, but yet one would have to be formally trained or educated in this kind of work, right? I mean, it's not for anybody who has, let's say, a calling for this. You have to be a certified clinician or a psychologist for this matter. So how has this preparation phase been for you?
Quite interesting, because I had to unlearn a lot of things. What mainstream psychology or what I study otherwise, or have studied otherwise, CBT, REBT. Yes, we do a lot of cognitive behavior therapy in terms of helping the patient manage pain, helping the family manage their own physical pain, or it could be psychological, emotional pain. But I never thought that I would use a humanistic or a more existential kind of an approach to dealing with a patient, because CBT helps for anxiety and this helps for that, and very structured. So this is absolutely unstructured, and it took me at least a good 1.5 years to really understand the unstructuredness of it and how beautiful it is. Training did happen. I did 2 foundation courses in palliative care and how to manage this concept of total pain, right? There is physical, emotional, spiritual, social. So when you meet a family, there is chaos in every aspect. So how to bring some sort of a healthy relationship with that pain, or how to accommodate that pain into their everyday and walk with it, because it's coming at a lot of loss. Just at the beginning, when someone's diagnosed, the cycle of loss has somewhere began in different capacities. So helping them accept that loss, process that loss, and start working with it. So yeah, I mean, yes, there is training, but training can only give you like some foundation. Ultimately, it's about how much you're able to empathize with the patient and the family and find it within you to understand where they are coming from, essentially.
So let's take this master's course of
Mm-hmm.
yours, which is what you did at University of Strathclyde,
Mm-hmm.
which is Masters in Clinical Health Psychology. Of course, that would have taught you a fair bit of advanced theories
Yes.
in this kind of work. What sort of practical experiences a master's course like this
Mm-hmm.
in an advanced country like UK,
Mm-hmm.
uh, how are they structured?
Oh, interesting. The way, so I remember I did not touch a single textbook during my master's. It was all live cases, case studies, and a lot of research papers. So even when we were to write an exam or write anything, it was all research based. So you had to be current with what's happening in the field instead of sticking to the definition and the theory and etc. So that really helped to kind of understand what people are really feeling and wanting. When I, as a therapist, I'm a practicing therapist, this is what the expectation is. So that really helped set a tone. And when it said clinical health psychology, I ended up studying modules on clinical psychology, which is your typical psychiatric or psychological element, and then health. Health is where we studied a lot of cancer, diabetes, stress, how there is an interlink between your mental health and physical health. So that really laid a foundation for me in terms of wanting to explore the health aspect of mental health too. I mean, how they are intermingling with each other, and that's what probed me to do my dissertation as well in that, as to how cognitive training and how that can help in kind of delaying the onset of dementia or how in those areas. And that seemed so fascinating to me because you're doing a lot of self care, a lot of mental health care, and then you're doing a lot of physical health care as well, and then you're trying to build a healthy sustenance in a way. So that laid the foundation for me to pick up something like this too.
Any assignment of yours in your master's course, which is either a live case or a hypothetical case that you had to work uh, as a practice, not as a theory,
Uh-huh.
something which stirred you up emotionally, challenged you a lot?
Not really during my masters
Okay.
because the way it is structured in the UK, you don't get to meet and talk in person without a certain certificate, licensing, etc. So
Sure.
definitely not during my masters, but definitely one or two cases when I did an internship in a local nursing home near my house. It was my during my undergrad, so it was one of those typical third year um, internships, and that's where I met someone who had advanced diabetes, and he had issues because of its stroke and all of that. So after having a conversation with that grandpa, I would say, that really kind of gave an insight in for me as to how to take this along. I mean, that was point A. And then stirred up emotionally was my very first case when I joined Palcare. She was a 19-year-old girl, as
Oh.
old as my um, cousin.
Okay.
So that was the first case that really stirred me up. Like,
What was that case about?
she had a very very rare cancer, and
At 19.
at 19, I think she got diagnosed a year earlier or so. I don't quite remember, but she was 19 when I met her, and um, so it was young case, as close, someone very close to my cousin, my age group, and it was one of those cases which I had started taking by myself without any supervision or without any hand holding per se as a professional, because then by that time I was allowed to start taking my own cases. So that really stirred me up because she had distanced all her friends from her because she didn't want them to remember her in that situation in a hospital bed, all swollen, etc. So I was there pretty much every day, and I remember like on two occasions she didn't feel like talking about what's happening to her and her distress. We ended up watching a couple of episodes of Friends because she was longing for company and longing for a friend, and so that was really intense for me. I mean, two moms, um, youngest in the family, so there was a lot of trauma that was happening to them in general.
So, in the work that you do, Niharika, I mean, in many ways, you are in a constant company
Mm-hmm.
with pain and suffering.
Yes.
Now, of course, one has to be very sensitive in doing this work, because unless you are a sensitive person, you won't be able to do justice to this kind of work. But isn't this sensitivity a double-edged sword? Because the fear, and I'm speculating here,
Mm-hmm.
is how do I, as a caregiver in a situation like this, ensure that I engage with the pain and suffering of the other
Mm-hmm.
with a clear boundary drawn,
Right.
saying that this doesn't belong to me,
Oh, yeah.
isn't it? I mean, otherwise, you would carry that pain and suffering with you, and then case after case, day after day, week after week.
Yes.
I mean, it will just accumulate in your well.
True. I mean, it does. It does accumulate at times. When it's a little too back to back, it does accumulate. I mean, but it's if to be a good therapist, you need to learn to detach from all of this. I mean, I'm not. There won't be an absolute detachment that might happen,
Mhm.
because if I meet a case, whether it's my cancer patients or even in my private practice, if something the client has said and it stays, and then you end up reading something here and there and you come immediately think of that person. So that absolute detachment will not and cannot happen, but it's important to practice it. Otherwise, I'll drive myself crazy. I do a lot of things to be able to find that fine balance. At times I let them know that this is not in my capacity, and I'm sorry that I cannot help you, so it's okay to say that I don't know, and that's really helped me. um, it's also helped me to be vulnerable with them in that situation as well at times, because that is also what they want. It's helped, like in one or two cases, I don't, because they also see that I'm equally helpless as them, and I'm also trying to help them walking with them through this sense of I'm company, I'm holding their hand. I end up hitting the gym. That's where I find my solace and just have a fantastic vent to my own helplessness and other frustrations of life. So yeah, and then we have weekly or bi-weekly debriefing sessions. So all of us psychos, we call ourselves psychos at work. We'll meet, we'll rant, we'll complain, we'll do this, we'll do that. We'll find solutions to our own pain and how I can go back to that same family and help them in the next session. So that's really helpful. And I do end up taking therapy for myself to kind of navigate through this pain and suffering. It's definitely changed a certain aspect of my worldview. However, this knowledge definitely came in handy for me when with my own grandmother recently. So it has been a blessing in disguise too.
So when you pick up an assignment, or
Mhm.
you are assigned a particular work of this nature, where you have to give palliative care, and you've chosen the specific segment or space of terminally ill cancer patients, you obviously would have a strategy to go about doing your work. You would have a plan, you will set yourself a goal, and as you are pursuing your goal, you would encounter problems.
Correct.
and then you have to troubleshoot
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
So, in many ways, the warrior within you is also active and alive,
Yes. Very much.
and so is the healer,
Yes.
right?
Yes. It's like one foot here and the other foot there.
So, it sounds paradoxical that you have to hold the healer and the warrior within you together at the same time.
Oh, I didn't think of it that way.
I'm just imagining you.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, because let's say here I am in front of you as one of your patients, clients. I don't know what you call them. I may not be the patient who is suffering, but let's say I'm the brother of the patient who's suffering and going through the end of life, and you are into a counseling session with me, and I'm simply in a denial mode.
Yes.
I just don't want my brother to pass away. And you are trying every goddamn trick in your trade to try and get me around
Yes.
to a state of acceptance. And
Right.
I'm saying no, no, no.
Right.
So you're hitting a boundary wall.
Yes, definitely. Happens so often. Happens so often.
And then you don't want to give up as such also.
Yes, but I've given up too at times.
Take an example.
Um,
Where you actually went the distance and then you said, I can't do this much and no more. If you can take an example, that will be...
Just the same example that I took of the lady whose husband was absolutely unwilling, and I spoke, the doctor on the team spoke, the nurses spoke, even we had his eldest son on board to break bad news, but the husband wouldn't budge. Had multiple sessions with him, dealt with his own fears of breaking bad news as to how we can supplement and complement it, and how we can keep her comfortable even with her knowing the news, etc. A lot of proper, like you said, goal planning. We can do this. If this happens, we can do this. Every goddamn thing. Ultimately, I mean, it's their patient. It's our role to advise. It's our role to give them every bit of information that we have. But ultimately, the decision always lies with the family, with the patient. So sometimes it's okay to retreat, and I have retreated many times, and sometimes that denial is also helping them deal with the situation. So you have to really understand why they are in denial and what's keeping them in that denial. And there have been a few times where I've understood that denial is helping them be on foot and do whatever is needed for the patient in their time of distress. So it's again a tricky line there.
But then how do you process your own inability to solve the situation?
After a point, you get used to it, because you know that there is a limited way that we can as professionals walk as well. Like how an oncologist might say, there is so much that I can offer and so much I can give you, and I've done everything in my capacity. Sometimes it's important to not stay in denial that, I have to, sort this out and bargain with the situation. You do your own thing and you come to your own level of acceptance that I have done everything in my capacity to try and address the difficult situation that's there. And sometimes I might feel it this way, but then after a supervision session with our other psychos, we might come up with a different idea and see if we want to practice it again with the family. But then a no is a no at times, and we have to accept that no.
And now how long are you doing this kind of work?
I'll complete 3.5 years in December.
So unlike in any other profession where 3.5 years would sound hardly any experience, but in your kind of work, which is intense every session, every day, every week, with every person whom you work with, every family you engage with, it's a lot in those 3.5 years.
Definitely.
And of course, the work that we do, influences us, and who we are influences the work. It goes kind of both ways. But then If you were to look at Niharika, who was there probably 4 or 5 years back, and if you were to look at the Niharika of
Now.
today, and let's say hypothetically,
Mm-hmm.
just as you and I are sitting across two chairs, let's say the Niharika of 5 years back and Niharika of today are in conversation.
Yeah.
What would be the conversation like?
I mean, it's true that like I've become more cynical as compared to what I was 5 years ago.
Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hear from the Niharika of 5 years back talking to the Niharika of today.
Oh, you need to do more fun things in life. Um, I mean, I understand that lockdown happened to you and you were alone and you had to survive through this by yourself. But now everything is going back to, so to say, normal. So you need to go back to who you were, and or try to bring in those elements that brought you joy 5 years ago. So let's start doing those things, sooner than later. So exercise, which took a back foot for me because of the pandemic, because the move from Pune to Bombay and then to kind of settle there, to manage the trains there, etc., took a toll. Zero energy, so that exercise has come back. Dance will soon come back, which I'm quite excited about. Yeah, I have to start, like, I just need to start doing a little more fun things in life. I've become too serious.
But what of the Niharika of today, which
Mhm.
she is very proud of,
Yes.
is what she would say to the Niharika of 5 years back?
Not too many things that I would say to my 5-year-old or 5 years ago version of me. Too many things.
Pick one.
Just be is something that I'm going to say. It's okay. Just go with the flow. Just be. Take it as it goes. I'm a hyper anxious person, so I need everything planned out. Everything needs to be, in a way, in order. And it's okay. Things are not going to be in order. So, and you'll figure out a way to deal with it too. So that's something that I would say to someone, to my 5 years ago version.
Niharika, let's switch gears
Uh-huh.
and talk about your Bharatnatyam journey.
Oh, so I started when I was 6 or 7 years old. Don't quite remember. My aunt, my Masi, she used to go to a dance class, and I started going to that dance class. Did my Arangetram when I was, I think, 15, 16 years old. Like 15 years old, just before my 10th grade started. The thread of psychology got woven into my head because of my guru. She's a psychologist, and during our free time, she would just brainstorm cases with us, and that's how I understood that something like psychology exists. And I think I was in 8th grade or 9th grade, and that's when I realized that, okay, this is something I want to pursue. A lot of resistance. Oh, why do you want to do this? You're a bright girl. You should go for science and do all of these things. These typical mainstream things. Picked up arts on purpose.
Purpose.
On purpose.
You wanted to prove something to someone.
I just didn't want to do physics and mathematics.
Okay.
That's something I knew that I did not want to do. So then commerce will have the same subjects again. So I went on to arts. I took political science, which I thoroughly enjoyed, economics, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and psychology, of course. There was a brief moment in my second year where I thought that, I should just take economics. It's really interesting. Then realized I had to again do mathematics, so avoiding it, stuck with psychology, and then I flourished. I think I am flourishing in it. So yeah.
And you have used your dance expertise in treating patients with Parkinson's.
Not treating per se, but my guru, she came up with a module on Nritya for body and soul, and we used to help her out with the elderly who would come for that batch from 5 to 6 on a Saturday, and I would assist her, would teach them as to, because they had Parkinson's, and it's known that the movements, the mudras that we do can help and aid with the pains and the constant tremble in the hand, etc. So I helped her, studied along the way, was on and off understanding of why this movement was taken up in the module, why that movement was taken up in the module. Haven't specifically gotten a certificate for it yet, but something that I helped my guru through for that 7-8 months that I was there.
Mental health, unlike physical health, uh, is often spoken about. The good part is, at least it is spoken about these days,
Yes,
which is a good news.
yes,
And it could be on many issues. And this is something which, uh, as a country, the way we have grown economically over the last 25, 30 years, which has brought in a lot of wealth and prosperity to many people, especially the middle class. They say that one of the strengths of India is a strong 300 million plus middle class who has a certain disposable wealth, which is what is fueling the consumption and economy now. It could be argued whether this is right or wrong, but parallelly, what I've also seen is, in direct proportion to the economic growth, the need for mental well-being is also is growing in equal proportions.
it is.
So when as a psychologist, when you look at the India of today or the society of today, and when you say cross section of people across different ages, it could be the teenagers or
Yes.
young adults, or married couples, or couples with kids, or couple
Correct.
who do not have kids, to people all the way to middle age and late stage.
Right.
What sort of spectrum do you see for somebody like you going forward, in terms of a caregiver or health provider in the mental health segment?
Okay.
When you see, what sort of canvas do you see?
I think it's going to be a mix. Caregivers, because we have 15-year-old helping out their mother who's a patient. Then longevity has increased, so I have had a few patients whose parents are still living, and they've outlived, the parents have outlived their own children. So it's going to be a mix when it comes to cancer. And when it comes to, like you said, general mental health and mental health well-being, like you said, yes, it's gone up, but again, it's restricted to a certain social class. It's not gone down to the roots where it also needs to go, because when I go into slums for my cancer care work, they just see me as a third human being who's come with a doctor and a nurse. They don't really understand or recognize why I am there or what's my importance. So essentially my first session goes in helping them understand what my role is and is going to be. So that kind of awareness into lower middle income group and below is not there. It's there middle income and above.
So, the doctor without a stethoscope,
If you want to say it that way.
if I can call you that, what does she look forward for herself in the near future?
So something that I would really like to expand myself in palliative care itself, not stay limited to oncology, just cancer, because I would really like to go on to working with caregivers or patients suffering from neurological issues or diabetes or hypertension, COPD, whatever it might. So expand in that way as well. Would definitely love to start my own clinic at some point. Right now I'm working with 2 organizations, and as much as I would continue to working with an institution, I would still like to have an absolute practice of my own. So that's on the cards definitely for now.
And of course, apart from your clinical psychology knowledge, which you have gained through at your bachelor's days, and your masters, and of course your almost 3.5 4 years of experience now, one of the tools or in your bag, or rather two of the tools in your bag,
Mm-hmm.
I'm speculating, is love and compassion.
Definitely. There is.
How does love and compassion come to Niharika's assistance in helping her do what she is doing?
I think I wouldn't compassion and that sense of, okay, she's dependable. I've always heard that Niharika is dependable, and from a very young age. So these two qualities, compassion, being dependable, are probably in my gene pool somewhere. So it just comes naturally, and it's helped me. I mean, that's a part of me, these two qualities, and I've just built on it with the different certifications that I've done, how to harness it more and more, and how to also develop a healthy boundary in giving out that compassion and that dependability. So that's something that has definitely been a part, and love just comes.
Absolutely. I think the work that you're doing and will continue to do, Niharika, has touched and will touch many lives, undoubtedly. I mean, in many ways, what a healer offers,
Mm-hmm.
I feel, is the sense of touch.
True.
And as you said a little while ago, just being with the person, holding his or her hands in silence,
Yes.
and without saying it in as many words, letting the other person believe that I am there for you.
True.
I guess that seems to be the beautiful message that I am taking from this conversation.
Oh, I'm glad. This is something that took me a while to understand. Therapy has always been about collaborative work. You need to help the client do this, and never realize that just not doing or not saying anything at times helps the most. So, yeah.
Now, Niharika, conversations like these honestly are difficult. Uh, Even in a podcast format, though you are trying to discuss and understand situations around this,
Mm-hmm.
one can't be doing this intellectually. Whilst the conversation may have been a bit intellectual, but somehow emotionally it does touch if
Yes.
I'm listening with sensitivity and care.
True.
And what shall I say? I mean, uh, let the healer in you continue to heal
Mm-hmm.
others,
Yes.
but also I wish and pray that the healer also offers a touch to herself,
Yes. Yes.
because that's where uh, I feel the power lies.
True. Very true.
Because somehow, if one keeps drawing water from the well has to get its source back
Correct.
from somewhere.
True. You cannot pour from an empty cup.
You can't pour from an empty cup. And there is this story of a healer prince.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I read somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
who would every day morning get onto his horse,
Mm-hmm.
take it around the kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
and meet all those who are in suffering and pain.
Okay.
And this healer prince
Mhm.
had a magical bottle of, not magical bottle, he had a bottle of magical potions and lotions.
Okay.
And for any and every suffering, he would use this magical potion and lotion,
Mhm.
and lo and behold, the person would get cured. And in this bargain, he would of course listen to their stories,
Mm-hmm.
and then he would move from sunrise to sundown
Mm-hmm.
across the kingdom, listening to the stories of people who are suffering and then treating them through his magical potions and lotions.
Mm-hmm.
And at sunset, he would get onto his horse, come back to his palace, settle down in his room, And in the night or throughout the night, he would recall all the stories that he had heard throughout the day and all the people he had cured. And he would cry and cry and cry.
Yeah.
And what would happen is the tears in his eyes would fill up the bottle which had become empty during the day.
Interesting.
And when he gets up in the morning, the tears become the magical potions and the lotions which cures everybody around.
How lovely.
That's the story of the healer prince.
Yeah, this is the first time I'm listening to the story.
And maybe you are the healer princess here.
Well,
In
I
many
don't know.
ways.
I don't know what to say to that.
But this has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation, Niharika. Thank you so much for taking the time and having this chat with us. Just want to ask you, how do you feel
Well,
right now?
I'm feeling a little, I was a little nervous as to how it was going to go. Now I'm feeling a little comfortable myself. Oh, it's done. But yes, thank you so much for having me, and it was lovely having this conversation.
Thank you so much, Niharika. You take care of yourself. Wish you good luck
Thank you.
and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for your time today, my dear listeners. This is your host, Milind Agnihotri, signing off. Goodbye, take care, and stay safe. This podcast is for general information purposes only and should not be considered as a piece of any professional advice. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of its guest. Creators of this podcast expressly disclaim any and all liability or responsibility for any direct or indirect, consequential or other damages arising out of any individual's use of this podcast. For feedback and suggestions, please write to wingsindia75@gmail.com. Thank you.